Meet Dr. Kolar, a former NHS plastic surgeon who built his own clinic in the north of England. He is on a mission to transform healthcare.
I want to build a legacy type company.
We'll uncover what it takes to build a healthcare business with an operating theatre.
We got quotes for $250,000.
We'll also uncover some advice that he has for doctors and entrepreneurs.
I actually think it's really important that doctors as a whole take ownership of their destiny.
So you can expect to learn what considerations are needed to build a clinic.
The main focus is the patient. How can you make it as smooth as possible for the patient?
Things to make the experience good.
It isn't going to be hostile, it isn't going to be scary, and we're not going to hurt you.
And advice for people on a similar journey.
Why would you expect to finish working as a consultant and say, I can instantly start a business? You've done your medicine for 15 years and now you're an expert.
This is more than a clinic tour. This is a masterclass into the business of healthcare. So let's get straight into it.
So I'm here today at this clinic in North Yorkshire, and I'm here today with the founder, who's going to give a quick introduction to himself, and we're going to go through and see everything that he's built, and I'm sure you guys will be amazed by the end of the video. So it's a pleasure to be here, and
Thanks,
how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. So I'm Mallapa Kolar. I'm a consultant plastic surgeon, trained in the UK and done fellowships all over the world. And we've set up our own clinic here, mainly because I want us to try and provide healthcare the way I think it should be done, and it gives us a bit more control.
Where do you think healthcare is failing at the moment?
I think healthcare, in general, we want to be providing things in a way where it's best for the patient, it's best for the system, and everyone gets a good experience of it. And I think sadly now in the NHS especially, resources are tight. So that's both from a financial point of view as well as people as well. So we're not providing things the way that we feel comfortable. And I think unfortunately that's affecting the ability to deal with the stresses. Yeah. So like A&E waiting times, people are sat there in the corridor, patients are waiting for a long time to get clinic appointments and surgery. All of those things just unfortunately adds to the cumulative effect where people feel like you're not doing a good job of it. And then I think that affects people's motivation to carry on wanting to work. Yeah. So sickness, then the repercussions of that and things. So
yeah,
I think sadly
it adds to the patient experience. And I can see, we're going to show you guys as well, but there's a lot of decisions that you've made to enhance that patient experience. And I think one of the first and most obvious decisions is where we're standing right now. Like there's a lot of greenery. What was the process in choosing this place specifically?
So obviously the standard for most healthcare facilities, especially private healthcare facilities, is it's based where there's high footfall. So it's either in a city centre or on a main road, so people can see it. Me and my wife set all of this up, so we've taken a different approach. What's actually more important is what's the patient's experience. So I know people talk about delivering healthcare with the patient at the centre, but we kind of thought about it slightly differently, and we were like, look, let's base it out in somewhere that looks good, because it makes you feel good. Yeah. And if you come in with a positive attitude, when you go in to have whatever you're going to have done or who you're going to see, you start off with a positive mindset. And there's loads of studies that show the beneficial effects of that. So if we start off here, so we've got the reception area. We've got a granite reception desk, nice and expensive, which is a good start. Essentially, the reason is it looks premium, it feels welcoming, it doesn't feel intimidating, it doesn't feel sterile. So we thought this is like a really nice way of welcoming people. And then behind it, we've got our sign, which is Klinken, and the reason for that is I did my PhD in Sweden, so I thought it's nice to combine the thought processes of like Swedish-German thought processes in the UK, and like we've got like our symbol is the Venn diagram there. So there's the three circles, which is like art, science, and nature, and we work at the intersection of all of that. I know it sounds really cheesy, and I get that, but we feel like we try and live that, and that's important because we try and advise our patients in that way. We want the whole experience to feel something less sterile, less clinical, and more welcoming. Yeah. So yeah, we've got this bit here, and then we've got an area here for Again, it looks like a lot of random stuff, but it's again combining these different elements. So you can appreciate beauty through other aspects, like, you know, Chanel. There's wine trails. Who wouldn't want a good glass of wine? And then like and obviously women, which is the main cohort of people that we treat here. We've got a drinks area. So we prepare the drinks for the patients, and it's a combination of hot and cold drinks. So people can feel relaxed, and you know, there's a thought process people typically go through when they relax. You know, you want to have a cup of tea when you get home. Yeah. So why not kind of get that thought process here as well?
The other part, which I know you can't appreciate whilst you're watching this video, is that this room smells nice as well. What was the process behind even just little things like that, making it smell like warm and like a spa, like you described earlier?
Yeah, so normally when you come to a place like clinical facilities, then you get the smell of bleach or other products, or you know, effects of treatment, and I think that adds to the anxiety. You know, so it's the non-verbal communication that we've tried to consider. Yeah. In building up an overall case to say you're in a welcoming environment, it isn't going to be hostile, it isn't going to be scary, and we're not going to hurt you. Because people do understandably come in. We had a clinic earlier on today, and one of the patients came in and was very anxious. Yeah. But she took time speaking to different members of our team. It took her time in consultation and everything like that. And at the end of it, she was just keen to book in everything. And we were kind of like, no, whoa there. Let's get this done correctly. Yeah. And I think it's, again, if you make it feel more like a hotel / spa / home kind of influences, it just adds to the level of comfort, doesn't it? Yeah,
and that's one thing I always say, is that I feel like healthcare as a whole should be an experience. Like, you should feel something when you're coming to feel better. But I think, like you said, like maybe it's resource constraint, financial constraint, that a lot of the time we're so focused on other things that we forget that it should be an experience. Even something like waiting on a waiting list for 24 weeks is, I guess, negative points to the experience. So when people come in, they're already frustrated because they had to wait so long. And then when they get there, like the doctor's typing and not even looking at the patient, that adds to their frustration, and maybe they go home without their concerns being met. All of those things adding to the frustration. And I feel like there is loads of little things in this clinic that you guys have added to just add to that patient experience, such as like the artwork, for instance. Could you maybe talk to us about why you chose these pieces of art in this clinic, for instance?
So we wanted a particular style. So we wanted to design both the internal layout, the artwork, and then the color scheme as well, all had to be consistent with that. This was like my wife's aunt who actually painted this for us. We just kind of gave her a brief and let her artistic kind of abilities shout through. But yeah, it's essentially black, white, grays, but the splashes of color are given by both the greenery, which I think again adds to that natural element. You can see the plants that helps relax people as well, and that's on the inside and the outside. And then there's obviously the colors as well in here. And we didn't want to pack the space with like too many chairs for lots of people to be coming in, because half of this is, like you said, the experience. It's you want people to feel like they're the center of attention, which they are. Yeah. But you know, if you've got fewer people, then they appreciate the space. Then they also appreciate that it's like almost one-on-one care. Yeah.
And then if we're talking about this from a business perspective, one of the things we spoke about is how there isn't any like ads in this room. A lot of people will say like, why would you do that when you're not advertising for your services or maybe follow up things for patients? How come you guys chose to not advertise a lot whilst you're in this place?
So I think everywhere, especially in social media and things, everyone's pushing something onto someone. And you need to come to a space where that stops, the detox type thing. You get that when you're going to premium experiences. You know, when you get on a first class plane, they aren't pushing you to buy the next, buy a drink or buy some food. When you go to a 5-star hotel, they aren't saying, can you go to the vending machine and get these bits and bobs. When you go to a spa, it's what's needed to help you relax.
Yeah.
And I think that's the underlying mindset that we've tried to build in here, to say, now what do we need to do to not intimidate people? Because the whole thing is, this isn't about money. Yes, you want to make money when you're doing any business, but if that's the underlying principle, then you look at every way to extract money. Here, it's more about what can you do to get the patients the right experience, because that will then mean that it's an overall good thing, which will only enhance your overall outcome. We want to be facing each other so you can talk to the patients. Yeah. We've got things like the laptop and all of the paperwork is done in front of the patient, so you can talk. They can see what you're doing rather than turning away from them. And then we've also connected our computer system to a TV, because we want to help to educate patients, so they understand the whole process. Because a lot of the times people are going through things and don't really get why they're having it done, what they need it for, and what's the outcomes. So it's part of that experience thing.
And I know it says, well, from most NHS hospitals they would have a flat bed, but this is more like a dental chair, I guess.
Yeah.
What was the decision-making process in having this chair in the room?
So it's expensive, but the main thing is, when people, if anyone's sitting on there, you've got a combination of older people, you've got women, especially in the summertime with skirts and dresses. It's not elegant, to be getting on there and then struggling, and it affects their dignity. Yeah. So if you're thinking about their dignity and their overall their thought process, they'll be feeling like they feel that there's the power dynamic. You're removing that dignity from them, and then you're talking at them. Yeah. I feel that kind of really can dehumanize people. Whereas this, I feel we've designed this so that people still feel like, actually, they've considered me. Yeah. So it is a chair right now, but it's all foot like pedal operated. So we can get this completely flat. You can do all of the maneuvers in case they faint and all of that kind of stuff. So those bits are, we're not compromising on that. Yeah. But there's an elegant way and there's a more considerate way of doing things.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing is you can see how you took something which is like a commonly practiced approach and thought, how can we think of this from first principles and just do what the patient needs to add to the experience, rather than every consultation room has a flat bed, we're just going to have a flat bed. So again, those tiny things just adding to the patient experience are kind of compounding to give that full range of experience.
One of the other principles that we've tried to kind of carry right the way through is the feeling of space. So you don't want things to be cramped just to try and get the numbers in, to say I've got X number of like consultation rooms or whatever. So we've got a large therapy room here, and what we do is we've got like a large piece of painting that acts like as a statement piece, and then we've got this chair here as well. So we do like Botox, fillers, lasers on these kind of spaces. We've got like air conditioning to help make sure that they feel comfortable right the way through, and then the furniture, so the fixed furniture, the cupboards and everything like that, they're also consistent with the overall color scheme that we wanted to have as well.
Yeah, and even on the concept of space, like this is, it's quite a wide chair, so like even when you're sitting in the chair, you're not cramped or you're not feeling like you're kind of enclosed in an environment. So I think you can see that, again, like adding to the experience that you're in this room, it doesn't feel like you're in a dark and dingy room for your care to happen, which is, I like it. Yeah,
and there's plenty of light as well. There's obviously the large window there and then the patio ones as well. So, you know, maintaining patient dignity, but at the same time really optimizing their experience rather than like blocking everything up. These are all, you know, we've done it, so we're not compromising on safety or anything like that. So the operating theatre it's an expensive thing to set up. That is the most expensive bit of the whole thing. But what we've wanted to do is to make sure, again, it's about controlling the patient's experience and outcomes. If we have somewhere locally that we can see and do what we think are the right things, then it means it's more likely we can get to the right outcomes for the patient. If we get the right outcomes, it's a positive experience for everyone involved. And because we have our own theatre, we can make sure we've got the staff, which can sometimes sound a bit silly and a bit vague, but essentially if you've got people who are all working with the same mindset, it means that, you know, everyone's happy, it's a positive atmosphere, and again, it really affects the patient's experience. Patients walk out and they're like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought, and that's actually, if you can enjoy surgery, I enjoyed that, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's completely different to, I guess, the way I've been brought up in the medical system, where you're just thinking about the medicine, but here it's like, how can we think about the entire patient journey to come back around in a loop, so that the medicine part is just like the final outcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this room is
We've got one of the patient recovery rooms, so we admit the patients here, and then they also can recover here. So we've got the medical beds, we've got the backup system for like the power and all of that kind of stuff, so that it's compliant from a medical point of view. But then if you kind of look at this side here, you can see we've got like the artwork, again, the black and white kind of themes. You can still make it look good.
nice.
And we've got the chairs here for relatives. We've got like a little charging point that we've specifically planned for. So if the patients are, you know, the relatives want to be sat around whilst the patient's having surgery, then they can think about those things, charge their phone, connect to the Wi-Fi, rather than being stuck on NHS Wi-Fi and never being able to connect, you know. So yeah, and then here we've got like the air conditioning to make sure they're comfortable, and then we've got like a ventilation system to help draw out the anesthetic gases as well, you know, for patients with either sedation or general anesthetics.
Yeah, and is there, I know the ventilation system is something that most people, if they wanted to build a clinic, wouldn't consider. What else would you say are considerations that you had to make? I know one of them you spoke about earlier was these plugs. Like, what are the things that people don't necessarily think about when they think about starting a clinic like this?
So one is a space. So you need to have a certain space. So if, again, planning for the worst case scenarios, if the patient has a cardiac arrest, how are you going to get it out? How are you going to be able to deal with it? And what kind of considerations there? If the patient's being put to sleep, what things do we need to get out of their system, like the ventilation? Why do you need to do that? So lots of these things you can find on the internet. You know, everyone can find these things. We did it. The point is you need to take your time to read through those things, understand it, process it, and then do it. That's one way. The other way is then to find companies that'll do it for you. Or the other one that like we're trying to do right now is to set up a consultancy where we help other people build places, but also support them for the ongoing thing. So yeah, it's kind of choosing who you work with, and what you can either afford to do and what you want to, how much you want to learn and develop yourself as well. This is the whole theatre. We've put everything in the same place. So there's the area to wash your hands and get scrubbed. We've got the anaesthetic corner, and then we've got an area. This is all. It all looks like a bit of a mess because we're basically we've got a few changes, so there's no surgery going on. Yeah, so it's like the admin where the nurses will be doing their bits and bobs as well. So to give you an idea, we have like the ventilation system here. So you need a certain number of air exchanges if you're doing certain types of procedures. So like breast implants, the orthopedic stuff, the ophthalmology stuff. So each one has different bands as to how many air changes need to happen in the room. So we got quotes for $250,000. You know, the cheap one was 160,000. So it's that's probably the most expensive bit of it. Then we got like the operating lights. So this one was like 65 grand. You can get cheaper ones, you can get more expensive ones. But again, it's about deciding what it is you want to do. So that's me as a surgeon, if I'm choosing to operate, or at least what kind of treatment you'd like to offer. So what would your colleagues need to use? And kind of considering those things.
And what type of surgeries happen in this theatre?
So we do sedation mainly and local anesthetic. So I do my facelifts and neck lifts. I only do facial cosmetics. And then we do also some stem cell procedures. So we treat like osteoarthritis with an orthopedic surgeon. So I take the fat out, we process it, and then the orthopedic surgeon does like arthroscopies, and then they do the injection of stem cells. We have ophthalmology surgeons, we've got vascular surgeons, we've got breast and body specific surgeons, so they do like breast augmentations, reductions, tummy tucks, liposuction, arm lifts, hand surgery.
And then if we go back to, if we're looking at this theatre as a business perspective, all those surgeons that you mentioned, how do you work with them? Are they renting out the space from you? Are you doing like a profit share? Like, how is it working? Like, what's the arrangement with that?
So again, the main focus is the patient. How can you make it as smooth as possible for the patient? When you typically try to break it down to every single element in terms of what you offer, then there can be a lot of to-ing and froing. So we do it where there's a package price, and in that it includes everything. So we basically take the fee and then we pay the surgeons and the anaesthetists, nursing staff and everything from there.
Okay, nice.
In the UK, there are other options available as well. So as a surgeon, you can rent out theatre space in other places. You can rent it out from like GP practices or hospitals or private clinics as well. You can also agree to like profit sharing and things like that. But each one has its pros and cons. It's important, like if from a clinician point of view, to kind of assess what it is that you're comfortable with. Some people are more proficient at the technical side rather than the business side, so they need to realize that and deal with it accordingly. And from a facility owner point of view, you need to also make sure you pick the right people to have working at your facilities. So it's not going to be, we don't want anyone else to feel like they've been done over or, been unfair to them. But we also want people who are going to provide the right experience. So it sounds silly, but we itemize the bill and patients get everything. They know about all of it. But if you make it as easy as possible for them, then it reduces their stress, because that's a problem, isn't it? A lot of the times patients go in and they're like, I don't know how much it's going to cost me, and that's one of the worries.
And it's like all of these hidden costs that start to layer on, and I guess if you don't know what you're paying for, you're being told, oh, it's an extra £100 for this, it's extra £200 for this. That patient experience thing just slowly comes down, because it feels like people are milking you for money rather than the service that you're looking at.
So here we've got, this is like the power room. So we've got like backup power. So on this particular, where we are, we've got the national grid, obviously. Then locally we've got a generator as well. So that's like level 2, and then the last level is this. So there's 3.5 hours of operating. We can run the full theatre. So you can finish a long operation and still have power left.
So can I have a scenario where this would kick into play? Because I think for most people thinking about a clinic, they would never think about something like this. Like, what type of scenario would this be like? We need to have this.
If you're basically putting anyone to sleep. So if there's anything that relies on keeping a patient alive with power, you shouldn't have this. So one part is the power, but there's also then the modulation. So you need to make sure that there's no spikes in power, because that can cause surges. You can get like electrocution and all of that kind of stuff. So that you need something to temper that. So we've got one element for that. So that almost is like, if you're going to do anything that needs some monitoring, for example, you need to be able to have these kind of bits and bobs. Not everyone has it. It's fine. We chose to do it because it's just a risk. There's risk appetite.
Okay, so as part of this video, I wanted to give a tactical business insight into managing the business of healthcare. So when you were starting up this clinic, what were some of the initial considerations that you had to make sure this clinic was a success?
So one is the financial. So we're funding ourselves. So that in itself took away that hurdle. The next most important thing was understanding the regulations and what's required. So if you don't really get a full handle of it, it's very easy to be oversold things. And I've heard of lots of colleagues who have been in that situation and they spent a lot more than they should have. So if you get a basic, like a proper understanding of that, then it's about reaching out to the right people. Okay, so it does involve a lot of footwork, and you have to try and chat to different people, meet a lot of different people. Initially, it feels like a waste of time, but actually, it gives you a good grounding to understand who's saying the right things. Okay, because essentially everything is sales here, and you are the target. As soon as you say medical, everything goes up. Okay, so it's about, again, understanding what it is you can ask for and can't ask for, and then seeing what it is that you legally required to have, what's nice to have, and what can essentially be an extra, you know, and you need to kind of play to those thresholds safely again. That's where I think it's actually really important to kind of work with. We're setting up a consultancy company where we can help people to set it up and also support them. Because a really, really big thing of the whole business is not about the facility. It's about how you get through the hard times. Because the first 3 years are really, really hard.
What are some of those hardships?
When am I going to pay? How am I going to pay my bills? You know, it gets down to the point where you just have £5 in your personal account, and that's hard when you've worked as a doctor for X number of years and you're getting a steady salary, and then you're thinking like, how can I afford to pay the mortgage? How can I afford to pay for food?
So what would you say to someone who is thinking of starting something like this, but they may be scared of being at the last £5 or scared of being able to pay their children's school fees? What made you keep going?
For me, I think there's always a way around things. You know, things are difficult. Things will always be difficult. But I feel like by putting in this effort in the early stages of my consultant career, it gives me the opportunity to be able to do more later on. If I was doing this in my late 50s, I've got a few years left in my clinical career, and it doesn't allow me to be able to really grow anything and that I can then pass on to kids, for example, or even for it to be able to work well. Whereas now, by putting in this time and effort, it is a sacrifice. You know, we didn't go on holidays. You try and find the cheapest food. You try and get all your costs down, renegotiate your mortgage. You know, everything is open to discussion. But in a way, even going through those things, you really learn about the business skills of saying like what it is that you need to do. You know, really breaking it down to what's required rather than what's nice to have.
And it seems like you've managed to come out of those hardships and things are starting to look on the up. What would you say is the legacy? What would you say is the 10-year plan or the 15 or the 20-year plan? Like what's the point of all of this? What are you trying to achieve?
I want to build something that I can, first off, it can be a model that we can use across different parts of the country, internationally maybe as well, is one part, by aiming to drive standards up rather than trying to get to the lowest common denominator. And then it's something that I can then pass on to the kids. You know, it's I want to build a legacy type company. So I know it sounds a bit crazy, but I think it's like you want to work towards the future. It's not just about me. Ideally, I don't want to be known, but I want to be able to provide better things for my family. That's not just nuclear family, extended family, community, and everyone. And I think it's like, this isn't about me. It's not about me or my wife or anything like that. It's like, how can we actually generally improve things? So every element is designed in that way.
I love that. And if you had one piece of advice to the viewer at home who wants to go on a journey like your own, or even for myself as I go on a journey towards building a hospital and improving healthcare, what's one piece of advice based on your journey that you would give them?
The big one is to surround yourself with people who have done it and they want you to succeed. Because I think there's a lot of people who are always looking for ways to kind of get something out of you. And that's, again, the reason I'm bringing up the consulting is not because I don't want it to be a money-making thing. I actually think it's really important that doctors as a whole take ownership of their destinies. A lot of people just give up and then they just say, oh no, I just go to the hospital, it'll do it for me. Whether that's private or NHS. I think people should take control of their destiny. However that may be, some people may choose that the way they do it is through facilities. Some may choose to do other things, that's fine. But if you're going to do it, surround yourself with people who've been through it, the same way you would through in training. Why would you expect to finish working as a consultant and say, I can instantly start a business? You've done your medicine for 15 years and now you're an expert.
Yeah.
You can't instantly become an expert in something else.
Yeah, and that's one thing I always think about when a lot of the time at my stage in my career, people give me advice of wait until you become a consultant to start a business. And to me, that's never made sense, because I'm like, the skills that you need to run a successful business like yours and the skills that you need to be a consultant, yes, there is some transferable ones, but they're two different skill sets at the same time. Do you think your NHS background gave you some business acumen, or did you have to also learn that through just going through the trenches and figuring everything out?
Yeah, you don't get any of that stuff, because you have to bear in mind through medical school, through your training programs and any of those elements, especially in the UK, you don't get any sense of what's the commercial realities of running a department, in the NHS. Why does it matter about trying to find the cheapest thing? What is the actual cost of doing the things? You never hear these numbers when you're in the NHS.
Yeah.
Even as a consultant, sometimes you start to hear about it if you're interested. So no, I didn't really get much from that side of things. It's more about the people that I worked with and like the kind of influence that I tried to look at.
Yeah.
And the way I think of myself now is more like a businessman who does surgery. Hopefully I do well in both, but the aim is it's a mindset shift. I'm not trying to be a surgeon who dabbles in business. I think I've done my time doing surgery and I'm really interested in developing the business side.
That's amazing. So just to close out the video, I think it's been amazing to have a tour of your clinic, amazing to be able to see this greenery, which is not common down in the south of England. If people wanted to find this place or to access your services, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So you can just type in Mallapa Kolar. And then we've also set up Klinken Consulting. So you can look that up, but probably the easiest way to start off with is via LinkedIn.
Okay,
and then, happy to arrange a chat to help people and hopefully work through things.
Amazing. And we'll leave all of those details in the description box below. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tour of this clinic. I really like great examples of healthcare. If we think about healthcare from first principles and break it down just to be able to create a new model. If you know somebody who has a clinic, I would love to come and visit so I can document that on my journey towards building a hospital. If this is your type of content, hit that like button, give me a follow and leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you guys thought of this video. So stay tuned for the next episode where we go somewhere else in the UK to do a clinic tour.